We're going to sing a karakia that is a very old karakia that was used in times of difficulty, and it used to calm and bring strength. Whakata ka te hau ki te uru, whakata ka te hau ki te tohonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mataratara ki tai, e hia ke ana te atakura, he tio, he luka, he hohu, ti he mori ora. Didn't actually work, but never mind. Tonight. Okay. Basically, tonight I just thought I'd try to explain a little bit, not so much about anxiety, but just how to be with Māori children and young people. So this is a huge and complex subject, and all I hope to achieve today is to allow some understanding of how to be with our children. Māori tamariki and rangatahi, that's children and young people, are suffering. And suffering at a much higher rate than their non-Māori contemporaries. Most young Māori live in a world of duality. On one hand is the dominant Western culture, and on the other a largely broken Māori culture, struggling to adapt and survive. In more cases than not, our Māori youth don't easily fit into either. Most Māori young people are in a low-grade state of anxiety all the time, and their cultural needs are typically not really met in many of our schools. Māori tamariki are in so many ways different from non-Māori children, though sadly the status quo generally lies in the dominant Western paradigm. Undoubtedly, colonisation and the subsequent urbanisation has created a huge ongoing cultural trauma for Māori. We know this is post-traumatic stress disorder, and it has been passed down from generation to generation. Colonisation effectively broke down the day-to-day access to marae-based structures and support, which is so essential for Māori. So currently there's a resurgence, a reclaiming of Māori language and culture by many Māori, which will only benefit all young people. Many young Māori don't know who they are, and when given the opportunity to learn Māori language and tikanga from an early age, they find real strength to stand in their unique culture. What I intend to discuss this evening are some very basic suggestions of how to be with your Māori clients, patients, whānau, in a way that is culturally appropriate for them and will create an environment more conducive to a positive outcome for everyone involved. So we have the Māori health model, or te whare tapa whā. Many of you have worked in the health system will already know that. So it was developed in 1982 by Mason Dury and is probably the most generic model to work with. For many of us practitioners who work in a more holistic way, much of it comes naturally. However, there are practices that are particular to Māori. The basic concept of te tapa whā, is the four sides of the house or the four cornerstones. Each of them hold relevance and importance. If one's lacking or disturbed, then the whole thing's disturbed. So the first is the physical health, that's the taha tinana. The second is the spiritual health, which is the taha wairua. The third is the taha whānau, which is social family health. And this is sort of a bit different in Māori culture. And lastly, mental health, which is the taha hinangaro. I was going to write them up there, but I'm sure you all get that. We as practitioners looking to facilitate healing or support for our young Māori need to take this model to heart. And sometimes it may be challenging to a Western way of thinking. So I'm just going to talk about each one, how it's maybe a little bit different for our Māori tamariki. So the desire for physical health is common across all cultures. However, Māori have a particular relationship towards the body that is expressed through the customary practice of tapu and noa. As health practitioners, we have to have a rudimentary understanding of these protocols. The word tapu can be thought of as not ordinary, special or restricted. And the meaning of noa is to be free from tapu or ordinary. I don't know if any of you have been welcomed onto a marae, been part of a pōwhiri, but part of that ritual, if you like, when you're karangaed on, your ancestors, your tupuna, and yourself are all being welcomed onto the marae. And when you go on, you will look at the photographs of the tupuna that belong to the marae. So by being part of that process, you're now in a tapu state. So that's why after the business of the pōwhiri is over, then you all go and have a kai, you break bread together, and that puts you back into a noa state. So that's just an example. So a few instances that could be relevant in a consultation, in a clinic or a home visit situation. The head is tapu. Can I have this? Yep. If you needed to touch the head of your client, you would always ask permission, and you would never pass food over the head. So, in effect, we try to keep things that are tapu away from things that are noa. A microwave used for heating food should not be used for anything that will come into the body if you had to heat up a wheatie bag, something like that. Never sit on a table, especially one that's used for food or medication, just as placing hairbrushes or bags or clothing on a table isn't common practice. Genetic materials considered tapu in customary practice. You know, if you were doing a home visit and you had to clean someone up, hair, toenails, fingernails, that's given back to the whānau or the client. You wouldn't sort of chuck it in the rubbish. So that's a few things on physical health. The next one is spiritual health. More often than not, Western medicine fails to recognise the spiritual dimension, which in our Māori health model is integral. Karakia, which is prayer, for many Māori are an essential part of healing or health. All things spiritual for many Māori are a normal and natural part of the whole. More often than not, Māori see things. They see spirit, or they see colours, auras. They may have a particular relationship or a communication with the natural world, the earth, the mountains, the rivers, the birds, the trees. Ancestors are invoked through karakia, and their presence at times is actually tangible. For most Māori, the spiritual world and the physical world are as one. It's quite likely that your young client will have a whānau member, an auntie or uncle perhaps, who works with the wairua, with the energy work. This is normal stuff. Or with the plant medicines. Māori have their own powerful healing modalities such as rongoa Māori, mirimiri and energy work. And we are experiencing a huge resurgence in these practices. And these are to be supported and encouraged because they resonate with Māori DNA and psychology. Whānau health. This can sometimes be a challenge. Your client may be one child, but in actuality you are actually working with a collective. So you be open to include the whānau in the treatment and consultation process. And I don't just mean mum or dad, but it could be aunties and uncles, grandparents that come. Be mindful if you're in the habit of asking whānau members to remain in the waiting room. It may be the case that the elder members of the whānau are deferred to. Be respectfully observant and interact accordingly. In Māori culture, it's disrespectful for children and young people to look an adult directly in the eye. In Western culture, this can seem rude, when in Māori culture, it is more often a sign of respect. Understanding the importance of whānau and how whānau can contribute to illness and assist in the healing of illness is essential in working with Māori, young and old alike. Inclusivity for me is the key when working with Māori families. Mental health. How we see ourselves in the world, how we communicate with others, and how we connect all the aspects of ourselves is integral to mental health. So we can see how living in a duality, often not really fitting into either world comfortably, can cause a lot of anxiety and depression, especially in teenagers. Adolescence is a time of transition. If our young people lack pride in their culture and lack knowledge of where they come from, how can they know where they're going? Relationship, without an S, is an important aspect of mental and emotional health for Māori, more so than for Europeans. Relationship in a broader sense, knowing and experiencing the connections with your ancestors, your whānau, your iwi, your mountains, your rivers, and your marae are an essential ingredient for wholeness. So supporting our young people to be involved in kapahaka, taiaha and te reo Māori is a way for them to connect with their culture in a positive way. My personal belief is a deeper understanding of Māori people and an honouring of their language and culture by all New Zealanders would be the best remedy possible for our children and young people. But we can only start with ourselves. I invite you, come and meet us, get to know us. Te Herenga Waka o Orewa Marae is a multicultural marae. It encourages and supports people of all cultures, races and creeds through the medium of Māori language and customs, which are based on love and respect. So to experience the fullness of Māori language and culture is, in my opinion, to experience New Zealand's best kept secret. Thank you.